Hello and welcome to the industry analysis video from Astranti Financial Training. This video is going to focus on the industry context for the August 2016 SEMA operational case study exam on Wise Choice Hotels. My name is Richard Lewis. I'm an industry analyst and a business writer. I've been doing this for about 18 years. Here's a picture of me at the Intercontinental Hotel in Budapest in Hungary, where I was attending a conference on global supply chain trends. So my job over the last 18 years or so has been to pick apart what companies are saying about themselves and what they're announcing, to find the strategic story underneath. I started as a financial journalist, and I'd take apart the financial statements and find out really what was going on underneath, and then report this information back so that people understood the real story, the context of what choices were being made by companies. In my later career, I became an analyst, and the idea really was to listen to what companies were doing across the globe and try and pull out the trends, the context, and try and make predictions about what would happen in the future. Now, over all those years as an analyst, I travelled the world from New York to Shanghai, staying in the hotels where we were running conferences, and I got to stay in some amazing places, but I also got, crucially, to collaborate with the hotel staff to get to know how an event was put on. So you'd meet the technicians, you'd meet the managers, you'd meet the housekeeping staff, you'd have a working relationship with the hotel business rather than a pure consumer relationship as a guest. So that gave me very interesting insight, not only into the industries that I was there to analyze, but also into the way that the hotel business is run. So that's why I'm going to spend the next hour and a half helping you to look at Wise Choice Hotels from an industry perspective, using my unique knowledge of the way that industry is run. Right, that's enough about me. Let's get down to business. I've got the PDF open with the industry pack in it, and I'm just going to scroll down to the area where I want to begin. I'm not going to go through every single aspect of the pack. My colleague Peter Stiff has already gone through the Prescene in a very detailed way with you. So what I'm going to do here is actually focus on the context of the industry. Now, the reason we do this is so that when you come into the exam and you're faced with a dilemma, a question that you've got to resolve, you can say to yourself, well, what does the industry tend to do? What would be a solution that other players in the industry have done? What would be the sort of thing that tends to happen? So we're just going to have a quick look here at the types of hotel within the global hotel or hospitality industry. Now, the first type here is the upscale luxury hotel. This picture's the Shangri-La in Shanghai, where I've had the great pleasure to stay. It's an amazing luxury hotel where every aspect of personal service is catered for. Now, that's a very high-end experience, the sort of hotel that might be denoted by a 5-star rating. And the idea here is that you're receiving luxurious amenities. Luxury is the key word here. So that's your upscale luxury hotel. Now, a little bit lower down the price scale, we have what's known as the full-service hotel. Now, it's not a hotel that aspires to the highest level of personalized luxury, but it's still a very high-end offer. And by full service, really, what we're talking about are absolutely upscale facilities, large volume of accommodation, on-site restaurants and other sorts of amenities. So there might be a swimming pool, a health club, and so on. Usually they'll have conference facilities and business centres and so forth. So that's your full service hotel. Examples might be something like the Hilton, the Marriott, the Hyatt, the sort of place where you might be sent for a business conference. So that's your full service hotel. Now, the next type of hotel, and this is where I want to really focus our attention for the time being, is known as the boutique hotel. Now, a boutique hotel is a smaller, independent hotel. It's not a hotel brand, so it's not the Hilton, it's not the Holiday Inn, it's something special, something like, for example, the rather idiosyncratic Hotel Esmeralda in Paris, or in London, places like the Soho House, which is quite an exclusive sort of place that only really wants to cater to people in the creative industry, so it's hard to get in there if you're a financial analyst. That's a boutique hotel, and the reason that I want to focus on this is that our Prescene company, Wise Choice Hotels, actually operates 4 boutique hotels. Each of the hotels, 1, 2, 3 and 4, are individual hotels with their own quirks and specialities, and that's the kind of company that we're looking at in the Prescene. But also, mega trend alert, in the hotel industry at the moment, boutique hotels are absolutely where it's all happening. This is where the big trend is. Now, I'm going to focus much more carefully on that as we go through the pack, but I just want to highlight it at this stage. Okay, so the next type of hotel that I want to look at is what's known as the select service hotel. Now, I've stayed in a few of these as well. They might be something like the Hilton Garden Inn, for example, or Courtyard by Marriott, which I've pictured here. Now, the select service hotel actually caters to a more specific demographic than some of the other hotels, such as business travelers. So they're going to be a little more functional. They're going to provide some more basic amenities. So you might not find the leisure amenities that you would find in a more upscale hotel. So you might not find a restaurant, but you might not, or it might be a little bit limited. You might not find a swimming pool, for example. And these are more functional hotels that are really designed to help a business traveller or some other kind of traveller really find somewhere comfortable and nice and functional that's not going to break the budget. Okay, so that's the select service hotel. There are other types. There are cheaper types like the Travelodge Ibis, for example, economy hotels, resort hotels and so forth. One that I do want to have a quick look at here is the apartment hotel. Now, the apartment hotel is an attempt by the hotel industry to bridge the gap between what you might think of as a self-catering apartment and a hotel. So you might find some hotel style facilities such as your front desk and your booking in and so forth. But you'll also find something that you wouldn't normally find in a hotel room, such as kitchenettes and refrigerators that enable a longer stay at a lower budget. And this type of hotel is important because of the rise of consumer-to-consumer apartment rentals through services such as Airbnb and so forth. So we're seeing how our Prescene company fits in with the range of accommodations and styles on offer in the hotel industry. Now let's have a little look at our friend Airbnb. You'll probably be aware of the brand. It's not a hotel, but it is a website that allows individuals to offer their apartments for rent or rooms in their own properties for rent. Now, this is very controversial because it allows travellers to bypass the hotel industry entirely and actually arrange a visit, but actually stay in the private accommodation of an individual. Now, it's highly controversial within the industry because, of course, hotels are highly regulated and they're also subject to corporation tax. And those things alone create significant barriers to entry, whereas Airbnb seems to allow individuals to get around those barriers to entry and actually, in a way, almost enter the hotel business without any of the barriers, the costs and so forth that a hotel might face. In the Prescene materials, we do see that there are other hotels operating in Macland, but the Prescene doesn't mention Airbnb. But we do need to bear in mind that online lodging services such as Airbnb pose a real threat to the hotel industry. All right, so those are the main types of hotels that we see operating in the hospitality industry. Now let's have a look and see how the industry is doing. We're dealing in the hotel industry with a very mature industry. We know that this is an industry that's been running almost as long as we have written records. So it's definitely a very mature industry. Now, in a mature industry, what you tend to see is slow, steady growth. At the moment, what we're seeing is rather robust growth over the last 5 years of 20.4%. Now, be careful when we look at this, because we're not actually seeing the long-term growth trend here. But what that is the recovery after the 2008 global financial crisis. So what happened in 2008 is obviously we had a bit of a financial meltdown. A lot of people lost their jobs, a lot of companies closed down, and the global travel industry took a massive hit because people couldn't afford, or they didn't want to take the risk of traveling, spending money on travel. What we've seen is a very robust recovery. Over the last 5 years, the hotel industry has bounded back. Now that does show very resilient demand from consumers in the long-term trends. However, you have to understand that it is a mature industry, and so that kind of growth isn't going to be sustainable over the long term. Right now, in the 2015-2016 period, we can see growth has not been spread evenly. Okay, so there are some areas where the industry is now plateauing, and we're seeing even some areas that have been overconfident and overbuilt, and so there are one or two little pockets across the world where demand is not matching supply. That said, we've got a robust industry. The long-term global trends are growth, and I think that will continue even if some geographical markets are faring better than others. So the US is not brilliant at the current time. It's overbuilt to some extent. France is suffering because of some of its own external environmental problems. We've seen some terrorist attacks in France, so it's normal really to imagine that some people might be hesitant about visiting. And we may even be seeing some slowing of the recent growth in China. So let's move on and have a look at some of the trends. What's happening in the global hotel industry? Well, I think the key trend that we need to look at here is the shift in the dominant consumer group. And what this means is that by 2017, we will see the millennials, now those are consumers between the ages of 20 and 35, these will become the dominant travelling consumer group. And they're actually going to be replacing the baby boomer and Generation X travellers. And what this means is that hotels will need to shift their focus from catering for basically aging travellers to catering for younger tastes and newer buying habits. And that means especially online and mobile, because the millennial generation, also known in the analyst community as digital natives. This is the generation of consumers that have grown up with the internet. It was always there, nothing new for them, and they use it in a very different way to the baby boomer generation. So we're talking about mobile, connected and dynamic. That's one part of it. But there's also something else, and it's all about the design, the look and feel of hotels themselves. And what this translates to is lifestyle. What millennials want is a hotel that actually chimes with their sort of lifestyle. So whereas the baby boomer generation hotel might have looked something like this, the millennial hotel might look something a bit more like this. It's much less formal, it's much less rigid, it's much less corporate, and it's actually authenticity and uniqueness that are the qualities that millennials are seeking, and that can only really be supplied by boutique hotels. So to compete in this arena, what we're seeing is that the big hotel giants are launching boutique hotel brands. Okay, so these are hotel brands that can be franchised out across the world rapidly, which target a certain type of lifestyle that appeals to millennials. So, how does this relate to our Prescene materials? Well, I think it's a case of modern versus old-fashioned. If you look at the Prescene, we'll see some comments left on the websites of the Wise Choice hotels, and saying that they're looking maybe a little bit tired, they look like they might need modernization. And I think what that might be hinting at is the opportunity that I see as an analyst for Wise Choice to refresh their hotel interiors and actually match them much more closely to the millennial lifestyle. In short, they need to start targeting the millennial generation. Okay, so that's the quick industry snapshot. Let's move on and start to look at the types of customers that use hotels and how we reach them. Now, obviously, we all use hotels at some point, but what I want to look at is the way that the industry segments the customers. The first type of customer that I want to look at is the business traveller, and it's appropriate to focus on the business traveller because the business traveller actually accounts for nearly half of all guests in the hotel industry. So that is a massive consumer group, and they're actually highly prized because they are likely to pay higher room prices because their companies are paying. What do business travellers need? Well, they're working, so they are going to need internet access, absolutely fundamental. They're going to need access to devices like printers, perhaps to scanners. They're going to need meetings facilities or conference facilities because that's what they're travelling for. They may even need lounges that they can use for networking and informal meetings. So these are the kinds of amenities that as a business traveller you will be looking for when you travel. Now, it's worth mentioning it because if we actually look at the Prescene materials, what we'll see is that Wise Choice has two hotels situated in the business and financial centres of Macland. But what we also see is that Wise Choice actually provides no facilities for business consumers beyond the basic lodging. So we're not seeing at Wise Choice the conference facilities, we're not seeing the business centre. So what we'd like to see Wise Choice do perhaps is capitalise on the fact that almost half the global hotel industry is a business traveller by actually targeting their offer to that consumer group much more carefully. That is the big opportunity there. Alright, so that's my main point when it comes to consumer groups. Now, the next bit I want to have a look at is actually the geographic markets. It's worth mentioning at this point that there are a couple of key metrics in the hotel industry that tend to be used. The first one that we look at is room occupancy, and that's expressed as a percentage of rooms available. So you can tell how well you're doing by how much of your supply is actually being filled with some demand. So a low percentage means you've got too much capacity. So that's one measure. The other measure is what's known as the ADR, or the average daily rate. And when you look at the two of those together, you can have a quick picture of how an industry is doing, or how a market is doing, I should say. Let's use those two measures to have a look at the 2004 figures. When you look at it, you can see, for example, that Europe has a relatively high room occupancy rate. You can see it's the highest of the four main geographic areas: Europe, Asia Pacific, United States, Middle East and Africa. Okay, you'll also see that Europe has one of the highest room rates. In the United States, we can see that room occupancy is a bit of an issue, not even at 65% of capacity, and yet quite a high room rate. Something similar going on with the Middle East and Africa, where we're seeing quite a low room rate, but the actual cost of staying there is enormous. So why do I mention this? Really just to highlight the fact that Europe and Asia Pacific, as you can see here, are the key travel destinations. It's worth making a note of that. Should you need to start expanding Wise Choice outside of Macland, and I would suggest that's something that it does need to do. And the reason I say that is the fact that 75% of the Macland market is occupied by large hotel groups. So Wise Choice doesn't have a very big market share, and it might find it hard to compete with the incumbent market leaders. So it might want to start looking at growth outside of Macland, and it might want to look at that for other reasons, such as the high rate of corporate tax. But we'll come on to some of that a bit later. What I'd like to focus on now is a bit more detail on the millennial consumer group and look a bit more closely on how Wise Choice could actually start to target that consumer group by fulfilling its needs. Let's have a look at some of the key decision factors for the millennial generation. I've put three here and I've given them a phrase each. Make it mine. This is all about customization. It's all about personal experience. How does this actually meet my personal needs? Can I customize it? Can I have exactly what I want? Can I, instead of ordering a room with generic facilities, can I actually personalize it and get something that suits me? That's make it mine. Influentials is about who is telling me that it's good. Millennials are far more likely to trust the opinion of friends, either on Facebook or other consumers on sites such as TripAdvisor, where people have written reviews. So those are the things influencing millennials. And then the last decision factor, let's make a deal. That's all about comparing and contrasting. The internet today is full of websites that allow people to very quickly compare the price of hotel rooms in a given area. Not just hotel rooms, but that's what we're focusing on. You can very quickly use an app on a mobile phone to say, I'm visiting New York, what's the cheapest room I can find? And without even engaging with the brand itself, you are going to be directed to the best deal. So that's something that's really influencing the way millennials book their rooms and make purchases online. Those are the key trends. Let's have a look at some examples. Make it mine. Here's a strange example. Text It, Get It is a new service operating at Starwood Hotels in their Aloft brand. Now that Aloft brand is a boutique brand aimed at millennials. And what this allows people to do is to actually text an order and get exactly what they want. You can even text by emoji. So room service is no longer something that you ring up reception for. You go onto your mobile phone and you text it. Digital convenience is very important for millennials. Let's think about the entire process in a hotel of turning up and checking in. Well, we live in an age where you can check into an international flight on your mobile phone. So why on earth would you want to queue up at a hotel reception desk and wait for a person to manually enter details onto a computer system? It seems like an unnecessary and old-fashioned inconvenience. So what we're looking for here is digital convenience, doing it quickly, doing it necessarily without the human interaction. Millennials are more likely to trust the opinion of someone online, but they're also more likely to actually photograph what they see during their stay and put it on that website in the first place. So you've got to be very sure that what you're offering to the millennials is something that you're comfortable being photographed and shared online. Baby boomers and Generation X travellers were far more comfortable paying a premium to have internet access. It was something new and premium. No, millennials want free Wi-Fi everywhere. There's no point in saying to someone that's grown up with the concept of free Wi-Fi everywhere to suddenly say, well, you've got to pay extra for it. No, that's not something that even begins to chime with the way millennials live their lives. And that extends, of course, into things like on-demand TV. Now, hotels actually pioneered the idea of on-demand TV long before we had streaming services like Netflix. But millennials don't want to pay a high hotel charge to carry on using something that's actually just part of their normal life. So instead of making add-on charges here, hotels need to start focusing on enabling and not impeding. Don't place a price barrier on things that millennials have come to view as the basics. On demand, of course, is something that is carried through with millennials to all sorts of things, including food. We're living in an age where people can go onto their mobile phones and select a customized menu item from a fantastic restaurant and have it delivered to their apartment. So hotels need to start enabling that sort of service as well. The key point here is that the service level in the hotel should not be less than the service level that the millennial traveller can have just on the street anywhere. And lastly, millennials are looking for an experience that is authentic. When they're travelling somewhere, they don't want to stay in a space that feels generic. They want to stay in a space that seems like it's an authentic representation of the place they're staying in. It's quite hard to define, but it's absolutely the domain of the boutique hotel, and that is exactly what Wise Choice offers. Let's whiz on and have a look at the concept of substitution. It's very easy. It's never been easier for consumers to substitute. When you're looking online at services like Booking.com, Expedia or Last Minute, these are all services that allow consumers to substitute you as a hotel operator within seconds without even considering more than the price. So this is a market where substitution is rife, and where you have a system where consumers are substituting based on price, you have a situation that's sending prices continually downward. So how do we apply this to our Prescene? Well, look, if only half of travellers are visiting the hotel's website before booking, then Wise Choice is actually missing a major booking channel by limiting its own booking options to website or telephone. It's absolutely vitally important for Wise Choice to be present in the places where consumers are actually shopping online. Okay, so having just a website and a telephone line is no longer sufficient for a hotel. You've got to be in all the channels. So let's sum up what some of the key points that I've brought up in this section are around millennials and their demands. And the key phrase for me is what baby boomers regarded as luxuries and would pay for, millennials regard as rights and won't pay for. Specifically, internet access used to be a premium add-on that you paid for by the hour, by the afternoon. That's no longer cutting it for the millennial. They want free Wi-Fi and they want it everywhere. Hotels must match or exceed that experience to justify their prices.
So I hope you've enjoyed this sample video and more importantly found it useful. Before I go, I'd like to quickly tell you about a few of the products that we do here at Astranti Financial Training, specifically for our case study courses. We have a study text which details all the key theories in which you will be expected to use in your case study exam, as well as details of how to approach the Prescene and the case study. We also have a series of course videos detailing how to answer case study questions. This is actually an area in which many students struggle. Most of the scripts that I've seen, the failing scripts that I've seen, has actually been due to poor case study technique rather than lack of knowledge. We also have a series of Prescene analysis videos based on the current up-to-date Prescene, detailing all the key bits of information and likely issues you may face in the exam. Next up is the industry analysis, a pack detailing information about the industry that the Prescene company resides in, information about the key players within that industry, and more background information on the industry in general. We also have a range of mock exams created for each level and based on the current Prescene, which is a great way to get some practice in before you sit the real thing. We also offer marking and feedback on those mock exams so you can see where you are going wrong and where you can improve. Finally, we have the master classes. These are 2 one-day classes taken by our expert tutors to give you all the hints and tips you need to really add to your chances of passing the exam. Also, if you take our full course, we offer a pass guarantee, which, provided you have met all the requirements of the pass guarantee, you will get a free resit on the next exam should you fail to pass. So once again, thank you for your time. If you're interested in any of these products, please visit the website www.astranti.com for more information. Thank you.